Whereas with certain other individuals, like for example, Smash Anarchy or Surfith or Michael Lucas or Eric the Fatigued, a lot of these guys who I'm not trying to convince, by the way, I'm not trying to convince any of these jokers that they're wrong. I am offering them as examples to the less biased people of the world. Their particular positions, for example, with Weinstein, Jeffrey Weinstein. Jeffrey Weinstein, according to them, is innocent. It doesn't matter that every defense that they've raised or that has been raised has been rejected by the jury and by numerous appellate judges. None of that matters. He was set up, it was a hit, etc., etc. None of the facts matter.
None of the facts matter, he says. That's so funny coming from Merb. None of the facts matter. In regards to the quote unquote Weinstein case, it's pronounced Weinhaus. His name is Jeffrey Weinhaus, first of all. And secondly, Merb has never uttered a quote unquote fact out of his cake hole regarding the Jeffrey Weinhaus case, other than Jeffrey Weinhaus was found guilty. Jeffrey Weinhaus lost his appeals. Therefore, Jeffrey Weinhaus is guilty. And then he follows that up with some invectives and ad hominems. You know, he inserts a few here and there. Jeffrey Weinhaus was a sovereign citizen. Jeffrey Weinhaus was an asshole. Jeffrey Weinhaus's it was ugly, and his mother dresses him funny, etc. You've never heard. I challenge Merb to show any of his videos regarding the Weinhaus case where Merb has objectively looked at and recited aloud any facts other than the ones, the aforementioned that I just stated. And to accuse me of not being of being biased against the facts is just ironic coming from Merb. Merb's whole shtick is to in any video, not just the Weinhaus case. You can watch any one of Merb's videos, and what Merb does is he states out loud the most obvious observation that any person with a lukewarm IQ would see, could see, and could understand. Merb will take that observation and speak it. He will speak it out loud and then proclaim that Merb just won Merb's argument. That's really, and I call that MOTO, MOTO, master of the obvious. Merb is a master of the obvious. Merb doesn't care about the facts regarding Jeffrey Weinhaus. If Merb did, he would go and look at the facts. But I'm glad that Merb brings Weinhaus up again, because this gives me an opportunity to actually dig into some of these facts, to present some of these facts and speak them out loud for Merb or whoever might happen to wander across this video. Let's talk about Jeffrey Weinhaus, shall we? Let's talk about what actually happened to Jeffrey Weinhaus. Now, I'm no expert on the Weinhaus case, but you know what? I want to dig into it deeper over the coming videos and just try to get to the bottom of what the quote unquote facts are, the facts that we know. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna dig into it, and the stuff that I didn't know about Jeffrey Weinhaus 6 months ago. I had maybe heard his name a couple of times in passing. I think on Christopher Cantwell's escapade, he brought up Winehouse years ago, and I had no interest in digging into and seeing anything about Winehouse's case till a few months ago when James Freeman did his little thing on Winehouse. And so then I started looking into it a little deeper, and the facts that I saw indicate that Jeffrey Winehouse was set up. He was, and a hit was in all probability carried out on Jeffrey Winehouse. Now, Merb will say, well, he had his day in court. He had his day in the appeals process. But what Merb's an attorney, and it's Merb's job to toe the line for the judicial system, because that's how Merb gets paid. Merb will not address the profit motive in the judicial system, how justice can be measured out to people, to the citizenry, with a profit motive that levies out justice essentially to the highest bidder, right? To whoever can afford the best lawyers, whoever whoever's got the most money, generally, quote unquote, wins. In a lot of cases, there's no clear winner, but there's always a winner and a loser, right? If I'm innocent, if I'm an innocent person, but I don't have the money to hire a lawyer, and I'm looking at hard time, even though I'm wrongly accused, how many times do people cop pleas, to lesser crimes when they're innocent? And how many times do people, when they're guilty, cop to lesser crimes when they're guilty of really severe crimes? The justice system is a joke, man. No rational person goes out, and no rational person wants to put their faith in the hands of the quote unquote judicial system. When they're looking at serious time, we all have a heavy disdain for it, pretty much across the board. Why is that? What reason would Merb cite for that? But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit. Let's talk about what happened to Jeffrey Weinstein. So what happened to Jeffrey Weinstein was Jeffrey Weinstein. Let's talk a little bit about who Jeffrey Weinstein is and what he is. And there's an insurmountable of information about this on the internet. Anybody can go out and look it up for themselves. I'm just reciting what I've seen. Okay? Jeffrey Weinhaus was a loudmouth, right? He's still alive. He is a loudmouth. He was he's a rabble rouser. He's an iconoclast. He's that kind of individual that runs his mouth about freedom and runs his mouth about tyranny. Right? And he ran a website, a news wire called Bulletin Man, where he, the type, everything was tyranny to everyone. And he was pretty loud about it, and just making waves in his own little puddle. But there was never any indication that Jeffrey Weinhaus was a violent person. Right? He made threats that were, via innuendo. Right? There were things that he said that could be implied as, threatening. Right? He would say, the government just needs to stand down. They need to just voluntarily stand down, because we don't want to hurt them. We don't want to do anything that we might regret. So if they'll just voluntarily step down, then nothing bad will happen. That kind of stuff, right? And of course you're going to get people's attention when you talk like that. Um, However, just because you talk like that doesn't make you a criminal, right? It doesn't mean uh, that you're the next Timothy McVeigh or whatever. This is the United States of America. You know, our founding fathers talk like that. that's that's just a quote unquote fact there, Merb. This country was founded by people who talked like that. They said a lot more threatening things than that to the King of England, etc. Um, so, but anyway, so what happened was, you know, he caught the attention of the local county officials in Missouri where he lived, and this police officer, this member of the Missouri Highway Patrol by the name of Officer Folsom, shows up on his porch one morning, wanting to talk to him, and so they talk out on the porch, and evidently Officer Folsom wanted to, you know, get a hold of uh, Weinhaus's computers just to see what kind of stuff was on there. You know, maybe you know Winehouse is, I don't know, building bombs. Who knows, right? But of course, Winehouse, knowing his rights, asserting his rights, wasn't going to allow that. So Folsom said, well, he smelled marijuana. And so he went and got a search warrant to enter Winehouse's house to look for drugs. In the process of searching Jeffrey Winehouse's house, he did find drugs. He found a small amount of marijuana and some morphine, right? Um, and so he seized that. But he also seized the computers and computer equipment of Jeffrey Winehouse. Now, if you go and get a warrant for somebody's house, to search their house, um, the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, and I'll read it straight to you, says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue. This is the important part. And no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath of or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So it would be very interesting to see that warrant that Officer Folsom presented on that day. How does getting a warrant for to search somebody's house for marijuana authorize you to seize their computers? I don't know. Um, that would be something that you know, in going back and looking at the trial documents, I think that warrant was quashed. You know, presenting that warrant to, I'm pretty sure, based on my reading of Jeffrey Winehouse's um, of his sentencing hearing, I'm pretty sure that they kind of kept that warrant under wraps. I don't believe that the jury had an opportunity to see that. But we'll go back and, you know, that's not a fact. That's just you know, my speculation at this point. But we'll go back and find this out in the coming days and weeks as I dig into this a little deeper. But anyway, Folsom seizes Winehouse's computers and the drugs, right? And then in the following days, you know, Jeffrey Winehouse is upset because this was part of his livelihood. You know, that computer was how Jeffrey Weinhaus put his information out on the internet, where he got his attention. It's how he exercised his freedom of speech. He saw his computer as his printing press, and he saw the seizing of that by agents of the state as violation of his First Amendment right. And so again, he got pretty loud about that and upset about that. And in the coming days, Officer Folsom calls Jeffrey Winehouse up and says, hey, we're going to return to you your computers. And Weinhaus, doesn't believe it, right? But he's hoping that it's true. He's happy. They negotiate a place to meet so that Weinhaus can retrieve his computers, and Weinhaus can get back to his rabble rousing. And the place that they negotiate is a little country convenience store out on a rural road, away from everybody. And they pick a time and to meet there, and so they meet there under the pretense that Officer Folsom is going to return the computer to Weinhaus. And within 12 seconds of Jeffrey Weinhaus getting out of his vehicle, Jeffrey Weinhaus is shot with 4 bullet holes in him and is laying on the ground bleeding out. 12 seconds after getting there. Why, you ask? If you're not familiar with this, why would that happen? Well, Jeffrey Weinhaus had the gall to wear a firearm to this meeting. He had a holstered 9mm handgun in a parachute holster on his belt. And there was no lawful reason why he wasn't allowed to wear that gun at that point in time. And so Officer Folsom asked him why he had the gun, and Winehaus's response to him was, well, why do you have a gun? And Officer Folsom said, because I'm authorized to have a gun. And Weinhaus said, well, I'm authorized to have a gun too. And Folsom said, get on the ground, and then proceeded to shoot Jeffrey Weinhaus, claiming that Jeffrey Weinhaus was going for his gun, right? That he was unholstering his firearm. So that's really where the argument lies, is whether or not it was true. Again, this all took place in 12 seconds, and there is factual, objective evidence of this that you won't ever see Merb comment on or show you, but I'm about to show you the video. Jeffrey Weinhaus was wearing a spy camera that day. It was in the form of a wristwatch, and it recorded the video and the audio of what occurred. And we can see this, and we can see what happened from the point of view of that camera. So let's take a look at that. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole video at this point because it's about 15 minutes of stuff. What I just want to show to you is what happened to Jeffrey.
9/11/2012, Sergeant H.J. Folsom called me back and supposedly they're going to give me my computers. I'm running around trying to find someone to go with me. Went by the Book of Acts. Oh no, they can't do it. They're busy. So I stand alone today. Let the Lord be with me. Stand against me. He spared up not his own son, but delivered him up for us all. How shall he feel to give us all? Alright, well they're here and I'm pulling in here. Alright. Thank you, Lord. Praise today, Jesus. Glorify you. Good, how are you?
You got the gun for him.
Why I got the gun? What you got the gun for?
Because I'm authorized to have the gun.
All right, well, I'm authorized to have
Get down on the ground.
Get on the ground.
Get down on the ground.
You're going to have to shoot me, man.
He's still got the gun, Scott. I got him. Yeah, police, FBI, Highway Patrol.
So there you have it. 12 seconds. That's how long it took them to analyze the situation and determine that Jeffrey Weinhaus needed to die. And so really what it comes down to in Jeffrey Weinhaus's case, because he not only did he get 4 bullet holes for this, he got 30 years in prison for this. And really what it comes down to, what you have to ask yourself is, did Jeffrey Weinhaus show up that day with the intention of having a conflict with those police officers? Did he attempt to withdraw his firearm from his holster? And were the police officers in the right to do what they did? And you can't easily determine that from this clip. And that's really what it comes down, quite frankly. You can't lock somebody up for 30 years for having marijuana in their house. You can't lock them up for 30 years for having a small amount of morphine in their house. You can't lock them up for 30 years for having a loud mouth, right? There has to be some sort of violent act perpetrated, right? And it doesn't appear that there was one. Now, the officers, Officer Folsom and Officer Mertens, said that he was intent on having a showdown that day. I mean, unless it was his intentions to commit suicide by police officer, you'd have to be a complete idiot to think that you're going to be able to draw your firearm on 2 agents of the state and come out unscathed, right? It's just not going to happen. It's not rational. So you'd have to say, well, Jeffrey Weinhaus must have been crazy. But if you go back and you listen to this guy and you research him a little bit deeper, you'll find out, well, he's not crazy. He might be a little eccentric in his views, but he's not crazy. So, well, there's some facts for you. Merb's not going to talk about these facts. Merb's just going to say, well, Weinhaus had his day in court. Weinhaus was found guilty. Weinhaus lost his appeals. Therefore, Weinhaus is a sovereign citizen asshole who's stupid and dumb and he stinks and smells bad and whatever other insults that Merb can think up at the moment. Well, let's get into this a little bit more. I'm gonna dig into this deeper because there are some very interesting things that could present reasonable doubt that were not presented to the jury, and there's facts that can be shown that was in fact the case. There's a lot of facts here, a lot. I'm going to get into some of them. Anyway, that's it. Y'all have a good one.